Welcome to my channel, where I share stories about women. Follow me to listen to today's exciting stories. The first fissure in the facade of our perfect life appeared on a Tuesday evening, the week after Leo's third birthday. The air still smelled vaguely of melted candle wax and sugar, a clinging ghost of the dinosaur-themed cupcakes we'd served to a dozen sticky-faced toddlers. I was elbow-deep in warm, soapy water, scrubbing the last rainbow sprinkles from a ceramic platter, when I heard the familiar, cheerful call from the hallway. "Okay, little explorer. Shoes on. It's park time." Maya's voice was its usual sunny melody, the one that could coax a giggle from Leo mid-tantrum. But lately, I'd begun to hear a new, faint harmonic beneath it. A note of haste, a flicker of something that wasn't quite joy, but anticipation. Or dread. I couldn't tell anymore. I watched them from the kitchen window, my hands pausing in the suds. Maya, her dark hair swept into a messy but perfect bun, knelt on the porch steps, deftly tying the laces of Leo's tiny sneakers. The late afternoon sun gilded the edges of them, both a picture of domestic bliss. Our son, a miniature masterpiece with my unruly auburn curls and Maya's wide, intelligent eyes, bounced on his toes, clutching his blue Triceratops water bottle. "Park. Swing. Hi, Mama. Hi," he chirped. "So high you'll touch the clouds," Maya promised, her smile bright as she stood, taking his hand. She didn't look back at the house. She used to. She'd always blow me a theatrical kiss through the window, or Leo would press his face against the glass, making a squishy, laughing monster face. Now they just left. It was the 7th evening in a row. The fresh air helps him sleep. Maya had explained the first few times that her logic sounded motherly. He's got so much energy after daycare. The routine is good for him. And Elena Vance, former investigative journalist, now buried under a mountain of freelance editing deadlines, and the beautiful, exhausting debris of motherhood had accepted it. I craved the quiet hour, the empty, silent house where I wasn't mommy or babe, but just Elena, a woman with a brain that still worked, who could finish a sentence or a thought without a small, adorable human needing a snack, wipe, or a cuddle. But the quiet had started to curdle. Last Thursday, she'd come back with grass stains on the knees of her good linen trousers. We were rolling down the big hill at Oak Meadows, she'd said, not meeting my eyes as she peeled them off. But Oak Meadows hills were gentle slopes. The aggressive grass stains spoke of a different kind of play, a longer, more involved play. On Sunday, Leo had babbled about a big slide and a funny dog named Duke. The only big slide in our local park was a cracked plastic relic from the 90s, and dogs were required to be leashed. There was no Duke. The water in the sink had gone cold. I pulled the plug, watching the greasy, glittery water swirl away, taking the last physical evidence of the birthday party with it. The silence in the house was a physical thing, pressing against my eardrums. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, the gesture rough, anxious. My phone buzzed on the counter. A work email. I ignored it. Instead, I walked into the living room, a space curated for family. The deep, forgiving sofa, where we'd spent nights watching cartoons, the bookshelf overflowing with picture books and my old journalism awards, the sprawling playmat still littered with Duplo blocks. Everything was in its place. Everything was perfect, and it felt like a museum diorama. My eyes landed on it, a sliver of rose gold against the gray upholstery of the armchair. Maya's phone. She never forgot her phone. It was a third limb, the repository of her endless mom group chats, Leo's pediatrician portal, her interior design, client mood boards. A jolt, sharp and electric, went through me. This was my chance. A stupid, simple chance to quiet the stupid, screaming voices in my head. I'd just see who she'd been texting about playdates. Maybe this J was just Jen from her spin class. I'd see the thread, laugh at my own paranoia, and feel like a guilty idiot. The healthy, trusting thing to do would be to leave IT T.O. take it to her when she returned. I picked it up. It was still warm from her hand. The screen was locked, of course. But as my thumb brushed the side, IT lit up with a new notification previewing a message. The sender's name was a single stark letter, J. The preview text was short. It was all I could see, but it was enough. It was enough to stop my heart. T.O. freeze the blood in my veins. T.O. turn the warm, quiet house into a vacuum. When are you coming? You and Leo should come here, the usual spot. The words hung in the digital glow, pulsing with unspoken meaning. You and Leo, not just Maya. Our son. The usual spot, not the park. A specific, known location. A place with a history I wasn't part of. A cold, rational part of my brain tried to intervene. It's a mom friend. They're meeting at a different playground. The usual spot is the coffee shop next to the library. It's nothing, but the tone. It wasn't the breezy, emoji-filled chatter of the mom group, threads I'd glimpsed. It was direct, expectant, intimate. My fingers, clumsy, with shock, fumbled with the phone. I didn't know her passcode. We'd always respected that digital boundary, holdover from a more romantic, trusting time. Now, IT felt like a fortress wall. I pressed on the notification. It asked for a fingerprint or the code. I was locked out, but the notification had done its damage. It had shown me the sender. I stood there, in the middle of our perfect living room, holding the sleek device that held the key to unraveling my life, and I couldn't get in. Think, Elena, think. The message had just come in. Maybe they were texting about tonight. Maybe they were on their way to this. Usual spot. Right now. An address. There had to be a linked address. Maps did that. If the location was shared. With trembling fingers, I swiped down on the notification, shade, pulling it fully open. The message preview expanded slightly. And there it was. A small blue, innocuous hyperlink. An address. I tapped it. My own phone, in my back pocket, was irrelevant. This was about her phone, her maps, her destination. The screen switched to a mapping application. A blue dot pulsed. Her current location, synced to the phone. It was moving east on Maple Avenue, away from Oak Meadows Park, away from the coffee shop, heading towards the older, more established neighborhoods across town. The destination was already plugged in. A little red pin had dropped on the map. 17 Maplewood Drive. The route was calculated. 12 minutes away. I stared at the address. I memorized it. 17 Maplewood Drive. Then AS if handling a live bomb. I locked the phone and placed it back exactly where I'd found it, the rose gold side against the gray fabric. The warmth from my hand was gone. It was just an object again. But the information inside it was a detonation, waiting. I moved on autopilot. I grabbed my purse, my keys. My own phone. I didn't think. If I thought, I'd crumble. I'd call her, scream, demand. I'd give myself away. The journalist in me, the part that had once stalked corruption through city hall records and late-night meetings, took over. Get the facts first, then have the emotional breakdown. My car, a sensible SUV littered with goldfish crackers and board books, started with a purr. I backed out of the driveway, wide eyes scanning the quiet street. No sign of them returning. Good. My GPS was already set to 17 Maplewood Drive. The robotic female voice began directing me. In half a mile, turn right onto Maple Avenue. I followed, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every minivan, every woman with dark hair, made my heart lurch. What was I doing? This was insane. This was my wife. The love of my life. The woman I'd chosen to make a family with, T.O. fight the world with. We'd been through the brutal, 2-year war of IVF. The agonizing waits, the failed cycles, the finally miraculous positive that was Leo. We'd held each other through the scary nights of his high fevers, celebrated his first steps, designed this life, brick by brick. Laugh by laugh. And now I was tailing her, the spy in my own marriage. The neighborhoods changed. The tidied and newer subdivisions gave way to streets with mature oaks, whose branches formed a canopy. The houses here were older, larger, with character and slightly unkempt gardens. Family homes, the kind of street where doctors and professors lived. Maplewood Drive was a cul-de-sac, quiet and secluded. I slowed the car to a crawl as I turned onto the street. Number 17 was at the end, on the right. A charming, two-story colonial with pale blue siding and white trim. A wide porch, a tidy lawn, a plastic play structure, colorful and new, stood in the backyard. A family home. And parked in the driveway, looking utterly at home, was Maya's white Volvo wagon. I pulled over halfway down the block, behind a large pickup truck, killing the engine. My breath fogged the inside of the windshield. I felt like I was going to vomit. There was the house. There was her car. The usual spot. The front door of the house opened. A woman stepped out. She was in her late 40s, maybe early 50s. She had a kind, intelligent face, framed by short, stylish silver hair. She wore jeans and a soft-looking sweater. Not a mom in yoga pants. This was someone. Established. Professional. She held the door open with a warm smile. And then they appeared. Maya, holding Leo's hand. Leo, why baby, why whole world, looked up at the silver-haired woman and, without a moment's hesitation, broke from Maya's grip and ran to her, wrapping his small arms around her legs in a familiar, trusting hug. The woman laughed, a sound I could almost hear from my cart, and bent down, sweeping him up into her arms. She said something. Leo giggled, nodding vigorously. Maya stood on the porch, watching them. Her body language was relaxed, familiar. This wasn't a tense visit. This was routine. This was their routine. The one I knew nothing about. The woman, still holding Leo, looked up and her eyes scanned the street. For a terrifying second, I thought they locked onto mine, through the windshield, through the distance. I slid down in my seat, my heart hammering against my ribs. When I dared to peek again, the three of them were going inside. The blue door of 17, Maplewood Drive, closed softly behind them. I sat there in the silent car, the only sound the frantic drumming of my own pulse in my ears. The pieces, sharp and ugly, swirled in my mind, refusing to form a picture I could bear to look at. A secret house, a secret friend, a secret life. You and Leo should come here. Who was this woman? A lover? The thought was a physical blow, but the scene hadn't felt romantic. It felt familial. Was this a relative Maya had never told me about? Some dark family secret? But Leo's immediate, joyful hug, that spoke of time, of trust built over many visits, a more chilling, thought, cold and slick, surfaced. What if it wasn't about Maya at all? What if it was about Leo? The rare, mysterious fever he'd had it too. The one that had spiked so high so fast, and then broken just as suddenly, leaving the doctors baffled. The miraculous recovery, they'd called it. Had it been miraculous? Or arranged? Was my son part of something? Was he in some kind of danger? The journalist, the protector, the mother. All the versions of me screamed in unison. Get him out. But I was frozen, paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of the betrayal and the unknown. Going up to that door, pounding on it, demanding answers. It was what every cell in my body wanted to do. But what if I made it worse? What if I triggered something? I needed to know more. I needed proof. I needed to understand what was happening in that pretty blue house before I shattered our world. With a final, agonized look at the closed door, I started the car and drove away, leaving my wife and son in a stranger's house. The trust that had been the foundation of our family was now dust, blowing away in the rear-view mirror. The hour passed. I drove aimlessly, then parked a few blocks from our home, waiting. Just before dusk, I saw the white Volvo turn onto our street. I followed at a distance, pulling into the driveway just as Maya was unbuckling a sleepy Leo from his car seat. She saw me get out of my car. Her smile was wide, easy. Hey, you, we lost track of time. The park was so much fun tonight, right, buddy? She chirped, lifting Leo into her arms. He nestled his head on her shoulder, his eyes heavy. I looked at her. I really looked at her. At the woman I'd married. At the mother of my child. I searched her face, her eyes for a glimmer of guilt, of secrecy, of the monumental lie she was living. I saw nothing but the familiar, tired affection of a mother home from an outing. Yeah, I said, my voice sounding strange and hollow to my own ears. Fun. I reached for Leo, letting his solid, warm weight settle against me. He smelled of outside air and baby shampoo. Innocent. Mine. I forgot my phone. Maya said, breezing past me into the house. Did you see it? On the armchair, I said, following her, inside, holding our son close. The crack in our perfect life was now a canyon, and I was standing on the edge, looking down into the darkness, with no idea how to build a bridge across, or if I even wanted to. Sleep was a foreign country that night. I lay rigid on my side of the king-sized bed, listening to the steady, even rhythm of Maya's breathing beside me. Each inhale and exhale felt like an accusation. How could she sleep? How could her conscience, burdened with whatever was happening at 17 Maplewood Drive, allow her this peace? The digital clock on her nightstand cast a faint red glow. 2:17 a.m. I replayed the scene on a loop behind my eyelids. The kind-faced woman that Leo's hugged at the closed blue door. The words from the text burned in my mind. You and Leo should come here, the usual spot. The usual spot. This wasn't a one-time thing. This was a pattern, a ritual, a part of my son's life from which I was deliberately excluded. By dawn, a cold, clear resolve had hardened inside me, burying the initial shock and grief under a layer of pragmatic fury. I would not be the pathetic wife, weeping in the dark. I was Elena Vance. I had chased down city councilmen who embezzled public funds. I could certainly chase down the truth about my own life. The morning routine was a pantomime of normalcy performed with a brutal cheer that made my jaw ache. I poured Cheerios into Leo's dinosaur bowl. I handed Maya her travel mug of coffee. I kissed the top of Leo's head, the scent of his baby shampoo, now tainted with suspicion. Big work day? Maya asked, scrolling through her phone, with one hand smoothing down Leo's hair with the other. That corporate white paper. A real page-turner, I said, forcing a smile. You, park again tonight? The question hung in the air, innocent. A landmine wrapped in small talk. She didn't even look up. Yet I think so. The weather's supposed to be nice. Good for him to run around before bath time. Her tone was light, automatic. A rehearsed line. Liar, the word screamed in my head. I nodded, turning away to hide the tremor in my hands. The day was an agony of waiting. My freelance editing work, usually a welcome immersion in other people's sentences, was impossible. The words swam on the screen. All I could see was the map, the red pinned at the blue door. I called in a favor from an old colleague, claiming a family emergency, and clear my schedule. At 4:30 p.m., the performance began again. Maya started gathering Leo's things. The water bottle, a light jacket, a packet of fruit snacks. We're off. She called, her voice echoing from the hallway. Have fun. I called back, the two words like ash in my mouth. I waited until I heard the car, doors shut, the engine start the sound of the Volvo fading down the street. Then I moved. Grabbing my purse and keys, I sprinted to my car. My heart was a frantic bird against my ribs. This was it, stalking my own wife. The absurdity of it was almost laughable, but the terror was real. I pulled out of the driveway, turning in the opposite direction she'd gone. I knew the route to Maplewood Drive now. I took a parallel street, my eyes flicking between the road and the GPS on my dashboard. I had to be careful. Too close, and she'd spot me in the rear view. Too far, and I'd lose her. I saw the white wagon, 2 cars ahead at a stoplight. My breath hitched. There she was, my wife, driving her son to a secret destination. The familiar sight of her car, the baby on board sticker in the window, to the faint silhouette of Leo's car seat. It was all a horrifying parody of our life. I followed at a discreet distance. Why mind a riot of scenarios, each worse than the last? An affair was almost a comforting cliche compared to the other, darker possibilities that had taken root. What if this woman was part of some group? Some cult? The image of the tidy house clashed with that idea. But fear wasn't logical. What if they were hurting him? The memory of Leo's happy hug argued against it. But maybe he'd been groomed. The word cold and clinical made me feel sick. We crossed into the older neighborhood. The oaks formed their familiar canopy. My palms were slick on the wheel. Maya's turn signal flashed. Right, onto Maplewood Drive. I drove past the entrance, continuing straight for a block before making a quick U-turn. I idled at the corner, peering down the quiet cul-de-sac. The white Volvo was already in the driveway of the blue house. The engine was off. I parked a few houses down behind the same pickup truck as yesterday, Y vantage point partially obscured by a large rhododendron bush. I killed the engine and slumped low in the seat, feeling like a character in a bad crime drama. The front door opened. It was the same woman. Jenna? Janet? Jay? She greeted them with the same warm openness. Today, she was holding a picture book. Leo ran to her, and she knelt, showing him the book. He clapped his hands. I could see his delighted smile, even from this distance. Maya followed, her body language easy. She said something, and the woman, Jay, laughed. They looked comfortable, like old friends, like family. No clandestine meetings in seedy motels. No furtive glances. This was domestic, peaceful. It was the normality of it that was the most devastating blow. This wasn't a seedy secret. It was an alternative life. A happy, sunny little life that did not include me. They went inside. The blue door closed, sealing them in their secret world. I sat in the car for a long time, the silence broken only by the ragged sound of my own breathing. The sun dipped lower, painting the pretty street in golden, mocking light. Families returned home. A man walked his dog. A kid rode a bike. Normal life, happening all around the epicenter of my personal earthquake. I had the facts now. The secret location. The secret friend. The routine. But I had no truth. I had no why. The drive home was a blur. The rage that had fueled my investigation had burned down to a cold, dull ember of utter devastation. I walked into our house, my house, the one I paid for, to the one we'd built together. And it felt like a set. A stage where we'd been acting out a play whose script I'd never fully read. I poured a glass of whiskey, neat, and downed it, the burn doing nothing to warm the ice in my veins. I waited. They returned just as the streetlights flickered on. Leo was chattering about a big red ball and Jenna's cookies. Jenna oh, that was her name. Hey, they're home early, Maya said, smiling as she herded a sugar-buzzed Leo towards the bathroom. Everything okay? I placed my empty glass on the counter with a sharp click. The sound made her pause. Who is J. Maya? The question fell into the room like a stone. All the sound drained out. The running bathwater, Leo's off-key singing. Maya froze at her back to me, point one hand on the bathroom doorframe. I saw the tension lock her shoulders. She turned slowly. Her smile was gone, replaced by a careful neutral mask. What? Jay, on your phone. When are you coming? You and Leo should come here, the usual spot. I quoted the text verbatim. Why voice flat, dead. Who is J. Maya? And where exactly I asked the usual spot? The color drained from her face. For a split second, raw, unguarded panic flashed in her eyes. Then the shutters came down. She blinked, and her expression softened into one of confused irritation. Elena, what are you talking about? Did you go through my phone? You left it. The notification came in. I saw it. I took a step closer. Who is Jay? She shook her head, crossing her arms over her chest. A defensive posture. It's Jen, from my mom's group. We were texting about a play date. The usual spot is the indoor playground at the rec center. God, Elena, are you spying on me now? Her lie was so smooth that Esso practiced. It was the lie of someone who'd had an answer ready. The indoor playground detail was a nice, specific touch. Almost believable. Don't, I said, the word a low crack. Do not insult my intelligence. I followed you. Tonight. And last night, after I saw the text. I followed you to 17 Maplewood Drive. The mask shattered. All the blood seemed to rush from her head. She swayed, grabbing the doorframe for support. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. The shock on her face was genuine. I had breached the secret. I was inside the perimeter. You followed me? She whispered, the betrayal in her voice almost making me laugh. The sheer, breathtaking gall of it. Yes, I followed you to the cute little blue house where you take our son every night to see a woman named Jenna. My volume was rising, why control slipping? Who is she, Maya? Who the hell is she, And why have you been lying to me for God knows how long? Keep your voice down, she hissed, glancing towards the bathroom where Leo was splashing. You'll scare him. I'll scare him? What the hell is going on over there? Maya, what are you doing with our child? The fear, the rage, the hurt, all boiled over. Is it an affair? Is that it? Some midlife crisis with a silver-haired soccer mom? Don't be disgusting, she snapped, her own anger flaring. A weak defense. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Tell me. Because from where I'm standing, it looks a hell of a lot like you've built a second family and you're using my sonus, a goddamn accessory. He's our son. She shot back, her eyes blazing. And you have no idea what you're talking about. No idea what's at stake. Then enlighten me. I roared. Because all I see is lies. I see secret texts and secret houses, and my child hugging a stranger like she's his favorite goddamn aunt. She's helping him. Maya burst out, then immediately clamped a hand over her mouth. Yes, if the words had escaped against her will. The air left the room. Helping him? I echoed, the anger momentarily stunned into stillness. Helping him with what? What does Leo need help with that you can't tell me about? Maya shook her head, her eyes wide and frightened now. Not angry. Scared. I can't tell you. Elena. You can't, or you won't. I can't. Her voice broke. It's for his protection. His protection? I took another step forward. My own fear now a wild clawing thing. Protection from what? Is he in danger? Are you in some kind of trouble? Are we in danger? My mind raced to every worst-case headline. Witness protection? Debt? Blackmail? It's not like that, she said again, but the words were weak, a mantra that had lost its power. Then what is it? Talk to me, Maya. For God's sake, we're married. He is our child. What could possibly be so terrible that you have to sneak around behind my back? I was pleading now, the fury giving way to a desperate, gut-wrenching confusion. She just looked at me, tears welling in her eyes but not falling. A fortress of silence. I made a promise. I can't tell you. Not yet. You have to trust me. A harsh, ugly laugh burst from me. Trust you? You've been lying to me every single day. You've been taking our son to a stranger's house. Trust is the one thing you vaporized. Maya, it's gone. Please, she whispered. Just a few more days. A week, maybe. Then it will be over, and I can explain everything. Just pretend you don't know. For Leo. For Leo? I was shouting again, unable to stop. You're using him as a shield. What are you doing to him over there? What is Jenna doing? Nothing. She's helping. He's perfectly safe. I swear to you. Your swears don't mean anything right now. I was trembling from head to foot. I want the address. I want her full name. I want to know what is happening to my son. Or so help me God. Maya. I will drive back there right now and knock on that door, and I will not be polite about it. The threat landed. Real terror flashed in her eyes. Don't. Elena. Please you can't. You'll ruin everything. Ruin what? I was unhinged. The last of my composure gone. Ruin your little secret playdates? Your double life? What is so damn important? We stood there, facing each other in the hallway of our home, with the gulf between us a chasm filled with lies and fear. The splashing from the bathroom had stopped. A small, worried voice called out, Mama? Mommy? You okay? The sound of his voice, so small and scared, doused us both like cold water. Maya wiped at her eyes, decomposing her face into a strained semblance of calm. We're okay, sweetie. Just talking. She called, her voice bright and false. She looked back at me, her expression a mixture of pleading and steel. I can't tell you. Not now. But I am begging you, as the person you once loved, as Leo's mother. Do not go to that house. Do not contact that woman. For his sake. Just wait. She didn't wait for my response. She turned and walked into the bathroom, closing the door softly behind her. I heard the splash resume, her voice lifting into a sing-song. Time to get clean, little fish. I stood alone in the silent hallway, the echo of our fight ringing in my ears. Every instinct screamed at me to charge. Grab Leo. Demand answers. But the raw fear in her eyes, the fear for him, it gave me pause, a terrible, chilling pause. She had begged me to wait, but waiting felt like surrender. It felt like compliance in my own betrayal. I walked back to the kitchen, my legs unsteady. I picked up my phone. My hands were shaking so badly I had to try twice to unlock it. I opened my contacts and scrolled to a name I hadn't dialed in years, not for a personal reason. Rachel Torres, family law, shark in a pantsuit, my old college roommate. The phone rang twice before her crisp, professional voice answered. Rachel Torres. Rachel. It's Elena Vance. A beat of surprised silence. Elena? Wow. This is a blast from the past. What's up? You finally writing that expose on municipal sewer funds? Her old joke fell flat. I need your help, I said, my voice low and urgent. Not as a friend, as a lawyer. I think I may have a situation. With Maya, regarding Leo. The professional warmth vanished, replaced by focused intensity. Okay, I'm listening. Are you safe? Is Leo safe? Was he? I looked down the hall at the closed bathroom door behind which my wife was bathing our son, holding a secret that had the power to shatter us. I don't know, I said, the truth of it a bitter pill. Rachel, I don't know anything anymore. The silence in the house after the fight was a living thing, thick and heavy. I spent the night on the couch, staring at the stucco ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the empty living room. The soft groan of the settling foundation sounded like a sigh. The hum of the refrigerator was a lonely drone. Every creak of the floorboards from upstairs, where Maya was presumably also lying awake in our bed, felt like a seismic shift. Just wait, she'd begged. For his sake. But whose sake, really? His or hers? The image of Leo hugging Jenna, of Maya's relaxed posture on that porch, replayed on a loop. It looked like a family. A happy, whole family I wasn't part of. The fear that it was an affair had morphed into something more nebulous, more terrifying. It felt organized, deliberate. A second life running parallel to ours. Wait? I couldn't wait. Waiting was a form of drowning. I met Rachel Torres the next morning at a cramped, overpriced coffee shop downtown, far from our usual haunts. She looked exactly as I remembered, just sharper. Her black hair was in a severe, perfect bob, and her suit probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She stood and gave me a brief, business-like hug that felt like being embraced by a very concerned pane of glass. Okay, she said, the moment we sat down to her cappuccino untouched. Start at the beginning. Leave nothing out. Assume I'm a judge with a 3-minute attention span and a deep suspicion of emotional rhetoric. So I told her the nightly outings, the forgotten phone, the text from J, 17, Maplewood Drive, the woman, Jenna, Leo's hug, the confrontation, Maya's refusal to explain that her cryptic plea for timed her terror at the idea of me going to the house. Rachel listened, that her dark eyes missing nothing, that her fingers steepled under her chin. She didn't gasp or offer sympathy. She was a data processor, and I was feeding her variables. When I finished, the steam had stopped rising from her coffee. Okay, she said again, the word a punctuation mark. First, from a legal standpoint, that you're in a precarious position. You have no evidence of abuse or neglect. Taking a child to a friend's house, even secretly, is not a crime. Suspicion is not grounds for custody. But she's lying. I hissed, leaning forward, systematically. To me, his other mother. And that's shitty, Rachel said, her tone blunt. It's marital fraud, emotionally. But it's not, in itself, parental unfitness. The court cares about the child's welfare, not the parent's secrets. Unless you can prove this Jenna is a danger, or that these visits are harming Leo, do you have no legal lever to pull to stop it. The hopelessness of it was a physical weight on my chest. So what do I do? Just sit back and let it happen? No, Rachel said, her gaze laser-focused. You investigate. You gather proof. You find out exactly what is happening at 17 Maplewood Drive. Then, and only then, you decide your next move. Do you have any tech skills? Can you get into her devices? Emails? I shook my head. She changed her phone passcode after the fight. I'm locked out. Computer? Maybe. She uses her laptop for her design clients. I know her old password. It might still be the same. Rachel's nod was curt. Do it. Look for financials, emails, communications with this Jenna, any medical records for Leo you don't recognize. Be thorough and be careful. If she catches you, IT could get ugly. Also, do you need boots on the ground? Discreet ones. I know a guy. She pulled out her phone, typed a name, and held it up. Mike Rossetti, private investigator. Discreet. Thorough. Expensive. Tell him I sent you. He's good. He'll do a deep dive on the house, the owner, this Jenna person. He'll find what you can't. She put her phone down and finally took a sip of her cold coffee, her face not registering the temperature. Elena, listen to me. This is a war now. A cold one. You need to be smarter, calmer, and more ruthless than she is. For Leo. Can you do that? I looked at my hands, clenched around my paper cup. The hands that had held my newborn son, that had typed stories that toppled small-time corrupt officials that now felt useless. I thought of Leo's trusting hug for a stranger. I thought of Maya's terrified eyes. For his protection, I unclenched my hands. Yes, I said, and the word felt like a vow. I can. Getting Maya's laptop was easier than I had anticipated. Paranoia had made me clumsy. Routine made her careless. The next afternoon, she announced she was taking Leo to a music class at the library, a real, verifiable activity. I checked the library schedule online. A cover for a detour to Maplewood? Possibly, but it gave me a window. Her laptop was on the kitchen counter, charging. A mundane object, a sleek silver portal to her secrets. My wedding band felt heavy on my finger. For Leo, I told myself. This is for Leo. I opened it. The screen blinked to life, asking for a password. My heart hammered. I typed in the old one, the one we'd shared for years for streaming services, the one that was a combination of our wedding date and Leo's birthday. 1019 Leo. The screen dissolved into her desktop. I was in. For a moment, I just stared at a trespasser in the digital landscape of my wife's life. Her wallpaper was a photo of the three of us at the beach last summer, laughing. The hypocrisy of it was a knife twist. I started with the obvious. Her email. I scanned the inbox. Client inquiries, receipts, newsletters. Nothing from Agena, AJ, or any variation. I checked the deleted folder. Empty. Too clean. I opened her documents. Folders labeled by client. Thompson renovation. Lou kitchen mood board. I opened her downloads folder. Tax documents, software installers. Then, buried among them, a folder with an innocuous, baffling name. Leo/Project Guardian. My breath caught. Project Guardian. I double-clicked. It asked for a password. Of course. I tried the laptop password again. Denied. I tried variations. Leo's full name, his birthday, Maya's birthday, our anniversary. Denied. 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 The folder was encrypted, locked tight. The very existence of it, with that name, was a confession. Project Guardian. What were they guarding him from? Or what were they guarding? Frustrated, I closed the laptop. I had a name, but no key. It was a taunt. I needed Mike Rossetti. I called the number Rachel had given me. A gruff, no-nonsense voice answered on the second ring. Rossetti. Mike Rossetti? My name is Elena Vance. Rachel Torres gave me your number. I need your help. An hour later, I was sitting in his nondescript office in a beige building on the outskirts of the city. The place smelled of stale coffee and industrial carpet cleaner. Mike was in his 50s, with the build of a retired linebacker going soft in the middle and eyes that missed nothing. He listened to my story with the same detached intensity as Rachel, asking sharp, clarifying questions. Maplewood Drive. Good neighborhood. Quiet. You have the exact address? The full name, Jenna. Just the first name. And the address. I gave it to him. Okay, I'll start with property records, see who owns it. Then I'll work out from there. Associates, utilities, vehicles registered at the address. You have a photo of the woman? I pulled out my phone, my hands trembling slightly. I had taken a risk. From my car, using the zoom, I'd snapped a grainy, distant photo of Jenna on the porch the first day. I showed it to him. He squinted at it, then nodded. It's something. I'll run it through some databases. This will take a few days. My retainer is $2,000. I'll bill against it. I wrote the check, the numbers in our joint savings account flashing in my mind. I was spending our money to spy on her. The layers of betrayal were stacking up, each one making me feel dirtier, more desperate. 2 days passed in a state of suspended animation. Life with Maya was a cold war conducted over Cheerios and bath time. We spoke in terse, functional sentences. The love and ease that had been the bedrock of our life was gone, replaced by a minefield of unspoken accusations. Leo felt it. He became clingier, more prone to tantrums, his little radar picking up on the toxic frequencies humming between us. Mike called on the third morning. I took the call in my car, parked outside a grocery store. Elena, Mike, I've got some preliminary information. You were right to be concerned. His tone sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the cars I see. What is it? The property at 17 Maplewood Drive is owned by a Jonathan Reed. Dr. Jonathan Reed. A doctor. The word should have been comforting. It wasn't. A pediatrician? No. A geneticist. Or he was. His medical license was revoked by the state medical board 5 years ago following a patient death. Malpractice. Wrongful death suit. It was settled out of court, quietly. The world seemed to tilt. A geneticist. A disgraced geneticist. My mind trained to connect dots began drawing lines with terrifying speed. Leo's rare, unexplained illness at age 2. His miraculous recovery. The secret visits. Project Guardian. Oh, God, I whispered, the phone slick in my hand. Mike, my son. He was very sick a little over a year ago. High fever. Neurological symptoms. The doctors never found a cause. He just got better. Mike was silent for a beat. That's not good, he said, finally, his voice grave. That fits a pattern. After he lost his license, Reed didn't disappear. He incorporated. He's the head of a private research LLC called VitaGen. It's listed as a biotechnology consultancy, but it's a shell. The address is a P.O. box. Digging into their filings, it's murky. They've received some very large private grants. The sources are obfuscated. This isn't mainstream research, Elena. This is the fringes, the kind of stuff that loses you your license. What? What would he want with a child? My voice was small, the question monstrous. I don't know yet, but a rogue geneticist with a history of fatal malpractice, taking a special interest in a little boy with a mysterious medical history? It's not a play date. The woman in your photo is Jenna Reed. His wife, Jenna Reed. Not a lover, a wife, a partner. The pieces were falling into a picture, but it was a nightmare painting. I felt the walls of the car closing in. My son, damn. Why beautiful, Laughing Boyd had been taken to the home of a disgraced doctor for over a week. For treatment? For observation? For something worse? I need more, Mike. I need to know what he's doing. What this Project Guardian is. I'm on it. I'm tracing the money, seeing who's funding VitaGen. I'm also pulling any and all records on Dr. Reed. Former colleagues, research papers, everything. I'll have more in 24 hours. In the meantime, Elena, be careful. Do not confront your wife with this. If Reed is into something shady and she's involved, confronting her could spook them. It could put Leo in more danger. What do I do? The helplessness was a suffocating blanket. You act normal. You watch. You listen. And you let me dig. I hung up and sat in the car, trembling. The groceries I was supposed to be buying were forgotten. My son was a lab rat. My wife was his keeper. The thought was so vile, so incomprehensible, that my brain tried to reject it. But the evidence was stacking up. The secret visits, the encrypted folder, the geneticist. I drove home on autopilot. Maya was in the living room, building a block tower with Leo. She looked up as I came in, her smile, tentative, fragile. Hey, get everything? I looked at her, really looked. I searched her face for the monster I was now convinced she was. I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with. The woman who sang off-key lullabies, who cried at dog food commercials, who had held my hand through every injection, every ultrasound, every moment of despair and joy on the road to Leo. Could that woman really have sold our son to some back-alley gene splicer? The cognitive dissonance was agony. Leo abandoned his blocks and ran to me, wrapping his arms around my legs. Mommy, up. I lifted him, burying my face in his soft curls, inhaling his pure, little boy scent. He was here. He was warm. He was alive. He seemed healthy, happy. What had they done to him? What were they planning to do? Maya, I said, my voice dangerously calm. We need to talk. Now. Her smile vanished. She stood up slowly. Leo, sweetie, why don't you go play in your room for a minute? Take your blocks. But I'm building. He protested. Now, Leo, I said, the steel in my voice making his eyes go wide. He scrambled down and toddled off, shooting a confused look over his shoulder. When his bedroom door clicked shut, I turned on her. I didn't shout. The fury had hardened into something colder, sharper. Dr. Jonathan Reed, I said, watching her face. All the color drained from it. She took an involuntary step back. Yes, if I'd struck her. What? Elena, I. Revoked medical license. VitaGen. Project Guardian. I took a step forward. Is our son a lab rat, Maya? Did you sign him up for some illegal experiment? Her hands flew to her mouth. Her eyes were huge, swimming with tears. How? How do you know that name? It doesn't matter how I know. What matters is that you've been taking our child at RSONTO, the home of a doctor who was sued for killing a patient. What the hell is wrong with you? My control was slipping, the calm giving way to a rising tide of hysteria. It's not like that. She sobbed, the tears finally falling. You don't understand. He's helping Leo. He's the only one who can. Help him with what? I roared. He's a healthy little boy. Is. What did you do? I didn't do anything. He's sick, Elena. Leo is sick. The words landed like a physical blow. What are you talking about? He's fine. He had a fever. He got better. She shook her head, a frantic, desperate motion. It wasn't just a fever. It was the first episode. Jonathan diagnosed it. It's a genetic condition. Very rare. Lynch-Mears syndrome. The name meant nothing to me. It sounded made up. A fancy label for a horror story. A genetic condition. And you just decided to believe this. This quack? Over every pediatrician at Children's Hospital? Why didn't you tell me? Why the secrets? The lies? Because you would have said no. She screamed, her composure shattering. You would have buried your head in the sand and hoped it went away. You did it with your mother. You refused the experimental trials that you chose to let her die naturally, and I couldn't. I can't let that happen to Leo. Her words were a sledgehammer to my solar plexus. My mother's long, painful death from ovarian cancer. The brutal treatments, the false hope, the final, hollow days. I had refused to put her through a last-ditch, agonizing trial with a 5% success rate. I had chosen palliative care. I had let her go, and Maya had watched me do it. She had held me as I cried, and she had judged me for it. This is not the same, I whispered, the air gone from my lungs. It is. She cried. It's exactly the same. This is his only chance. Jonathan's treatment. It's working. The nightly sessions they're stabilizing him, preparing him for the final sequence. Without it, he'll deteriorate rapidly, starting around his 4th birthday. He'll lose motor function, cognitive ability. Elena, he'll die before he's 10. She was sobbing openly now, gasping for breath between the horrific sentences. I couldn't tell you. I knew you'd say no. You'd choose to let him fade away, comfortably. I couldn't live with that. So I made a choice. For him. I found Jonathan. I begged him, and he agreed to help. I stared at her. This stranger weeping in my living room. Was it true? Could it be true? The timing of the episode at age 2. The secret of treatments. The rogue doctor. It fit a narrative. A terrible, heartbreaking narrative. But it was her narrative. The narrative of a liar. Prove it, I said, my voice hollow. Show me the diagnosis. The research. The treatment plan. She shook her head, wiping her nose with the back of her hand. I can't. It's proprietary. Jonathan's work. If it gets out, the big pharmaceutical companies would steal it, bury it. He's doing this off the books to save kids like Leo. He's a good man, Elena. A brilliant man who made one mistake. He's trying to fix that. By experimenting on her son without my consent? The outrage was a fresh wave. You had no right. I had every right. She fired back, a sudden, fierce light in her eyes. I'm his mother. I will do anything to keep him alive, even if it means you hating me. We stood there, two mothers, two wives, separated by an uncrossable chasm of betrayal and fear. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe that her lies, her secrecy, were born of a desperate, misguided love, that she was trying to save our son. But the facts Mike had dug up, the revoked license, the secretive company, the hidden payments, painted a different picture. A picture of exploitation, of manipulation. A few more days, Maya pleaded, her voice raw. The final treatment is in a few days. After that, it's done. He'll be safe, cured, and then I'll tell you everything. I'll show you everything. Just, please, trust me a little longer. For Leo. I looked at her, the wreck of the woman I loved. I thought of Leo, playing with his blocks, oblivious to the war being waged over his future. My heart was a battlefield, love and terror, and a furious, burning sense of injustice tearing it apart. I didn't trust her, not a word, but the sheer, desperate conviction in her eyes. The possibility, however slim, that she might be telling the truth about a deadly disease. It paralyzed me. I said nothing. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing in the ruins of our living room. I went to Leo's room, gathered him into my arms, and held him as if the world were ending. Maybe it was. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Mike. Elena, you need to see this. I've traced some of Vitagen's funding. It's not good, and there's more on Reed. He's not just a disgraced doctor. Meet me tomorrow. It's worse than we thought. I held my son tighter, his small, warm body at anchor in a sea of lies. I was adrift, pulled between my wife's desperate story and the PI's grim facts. But one thing was clear. The time for waiting was over. I was going to that house. I was going to get my son, and I was going to get the truth. Even if I had to tear that pretty blue door off its hinges. The meeting with Mike Rossetti was in the back booth of a diner that smelled of old grease and stronger coffee. The vinyl seat squeaked in protest as I slid why nerves wound so tight I thought they might snap. Mike was already there, a thick manila folder on the table beside a half-eaten plate of eggs. His expression was grim. You look like hell, he said by way of greeting, pushing a mug of coffee towards me. Feel like it, I muttered, wrapping my hands around the cheap ceramic for warmth. What do you have? He didn't waste time. He opened the folder, sliding a grainy, photocopied document towards me. It was a medical board disciplinary report. The name at the top, Jonathan Reed, M.D. PhD, the language was dry, legalese, but the conclusion was stark. Gross negligence and deliberate deviation from established protocols, resulting in the death of patient David Chin. License permanently revoked. David Chin was a 22-year-old graduate student, Mike said, his voice low. Volunteered for a phase 1 gene therapy trial Reed was running at his university lab. Something went wrong. An unforeseen immune response. Kid was dead in 36 hours. Reed claimed it was a tragic anomaly, but the board found he'd fudged the pre-screening data that ignored contraindications. He was fast-tracking it, cut corners. I stared at the word death. It seemed to pulse on the page. He killed a young man. The board thought so. The civil suit was settled for an undisclosed sum, which means it was sizable. Reed disappeared after that, until Vitagen popped up about 3 years ago. He slid another paper over. It was a financial record, a spiderweb of LLCs and shell companies. Followed the money. It's a maze, but the main funding conduit leads back to a holding company registered in the Caymans. And that company is a subsidiary of a larger entity, Kronos Biomedical. The name meant nothing to me. I shook my head. Kronos is a biotech firm, Mike explained, but not a friendly one. They've got a reputation. Aggressive. Litigious. They specialize in acquiring, or some would say hijacking, early-stage genetic research, particularly the controversial kind that bigger, more reputable firms won't touch. They've been investigated twice by the FDA for trial violations, but nothing stuck. They're like piranhas. If Reed has something, and Kronos is bankrolling him, it's not out of the goodness of their hearts. They'll own it, and they'll own anyone involved. My coffee had gone cold. Own it how? Patents. Control. If this treatment for your son's supposed condition works, it's worth billions. But human trials in the U.S. For something this fringe with a doctor like Reed? Nearly impossible, unless you do them quietly, off the books, on willing or perhaps not fully informed subjects. The eggs on Mike's plate congealed into a greasy yellow mass. My stomach churned. You think Leo is an off-the-books trial? For Kronos? I think it's a strong possibility. Your wife mentioned a final sequence. I nodded, the words from our fight echoing. Preparing him for the final sequence. That could be the main intervention. The earlier visits could be prep work. Gene priming. Data collection. Immune suppression. The big finale is where the real. Irreversible change happens. And where the value is captured. Mike's eyes were hard. If they succeed with Leo, do they have proof of concept? A living. Breathing product. They can patent the process, the vector. Everything. Your son becomes their exhibit A. The room seemed to tilt. My sweet. Funny little boy. Reduced to a corporate asset. A prototype. And Maya? Is she in on it? For the money? Mike leaned back. Steepling his fingers. Doubt it. From what you've said, she seems to genuinely believe she's saving him. Reed likely sold her a story. The brilliant. Misunderstood. Doctor. Persecuted for his groundbreaking work. Offering a miracle cure. It's a classic play. He preys on the desperation of parents, makes them complicit in the secrecy. They think they're part of a noble crusade when they're really just providing the raw materials. It made a sick. Horrible sense. It wove together Maya's secrecy, her fervor, her terror of me interfering. She believed she was in a life or death race to save our son. And Reed. And the shadowy Kronos behind him were using that belief to run their experiment. I have to get him out. I said, the words a dry rasp. Tonight. Mike held up a hand. Whoa. Slow down. You go in there guns blazing that you could trigger something. If they're this close to the final sequence, they're invested. They won't just let you walk out with their prize subject. We need proof. We need leverage. I have proof. I hissed. Gesturing to the folder. A disgraced doctor. A shady corporation. Circumstantial. It suggests motive. But it doesn't prove what's happening in that house right now. We need something concrete. Audio. Video. Documentation of the procedure. Something we can take to the authorities that will get them to move fast. Otherwise, it's your word against a doctor and a distraught mother. And they'll have Leo hidden away before Child Protective Services finishes their coffee. He was right. I hated that he was right. The law moved slowly. Bureaucracy moved slower. By the time I convinced anyone to listen that the final sequence could be over. And Leo could be changed. Or worse. What do I do? The helplessness was a physical ache. First, you go home. You act normal. You don't let on that you know anything more. Second, I'm going to dig deeper into Kronos. See if I can find a whistleblower, someone who's worked on this Project Guardian. Third, he leaned forward. You need to get inside that house. See it for yourself, not from your car. You need to know the layout, the people, the routine. But you can't go as Elena Vance, furious wife. You need a cover, a plan, cold and precise began to form in my mind, cutting through the fog of panic. I can case the house. Get a look. Tonight. After she leaves. Mike nodded slowly. Okay, but you're a civilian. Observe only. Do not engage. If you see anything that looks like an immediate threat to Leo, do you call 911 first, then me? Got it. That evening, the charade was almost unbearable. Maya was jittery, her eyes constantly flitting to the clock. She was preparing for another park visit. The final sequence was close. I could feel it in the charged air between us. Big plans tonight? I asked. Why voice carefully neutral. As I loaded the dishwasher. Just the usual. She said. Too quickly. She was packing Leo's little backpack. Not just the water bottle and snacks. She put in his favorite stuffed elephant. Mr. Trunks. The one he couldn't sleep without. A cold finger traced my spine. This wasn't a 2-hour play date. This was an overnight bag. Mr. Trunks? Planning a late night? I kept my tone light. Conversational. She froze, then forced a laugh. Oh, you know him. If he gets tired and cranky on the way home, it's a lifesaver. The lie was so thin it was translucent. I just nodded. turning back to the dishes, why heart hammering. After they left, the taillights of the Volvo disappearing into the dusk, I gave it 10 minutes. Then I sprang into action. I changed into black leggings and a dark hoodie, pulling my bright hair up under a navy beanie. I looked like every other suburban woman going for an evening jog. It was my camouflage. The drive to Maplewood was a blur of adrenaline and dread. I parked 3 streets over. I in the lot of a small community church. The evening was cool, the sky a deep periwinkle. I started a slow, steady JOG.my phone with its tracking app open in my hand, and my wireless earbuds and up playing nothing. I was just a mom getting a workout. I turned onto Maplewood. The street was quiet, peaceful. Porch lights glowed. I kept my pace, even my breathing measured. As I jogged past 17, Maplewood Drive. The house looked different at night. Warm, golden light spilled from the downstairs windows. Through the front bay window I could see into a living room. It was cozy, normal. A large sectional sofa, bookshelves, a play area in one corner littered with toys identical to the ones in our own house. It was a mirror of our life, a bizarro world version. And there they were, in the living room. Maya was sitting on the floor with Leo, helping him with a puzzle. Jenna Reed was in an armchair, reading a book. Dr. Jonathan Reed was there too. I'd only seen his picture in Mike's file. A man in his late 50s with a kind, professorial face and intelligent eyes. He was on the sofa, looking at a tablet. He said something, and Maya laughed. It was a real laugh. The scene was so horrifically domestic, normal, that it took my breath away. This was the trap. Not a dank basement lab, but a cozy living room. Not monsters in white coats, but a kind-faced couple and a loving mother. The perfect lure for a desperate parent. The perfect cover for something unspeakable. My jog took me past the house, around the corner. I circled the block, coming up the back alley that ran behind the properties. The houses on Maplewood had deep backyards. Number 17's was fenced, but the gate was a simple latch. From the alley, I had a view of the back of the house. A deck, a sliding glass door, and a light on in a basement window. The basement, the cozy living room, was the stage. The basement was where the work happened. As I watched, trying to look like I was just pausing to stretch my hamstrings, the sliding door opened. Jenna Reed stepped out onto the deck. She was holding a cell phone to her ear. She glanced around, then turned her back to the alley, her voice a low murmur I couldn't catch. I ducked behind a large recycling bin, why pulse pounding in my ears. I fumbled with my phone, opening the voice memo app. I held it up, the microphone pointed roughly in her direction. The wind was in my face, carrying her words in fragments. Final prep is done. Vitals are stable. Yes, the vector is ready for the final sequence tomorrow. No, she suspects nothing. She's compliant. Trust me that he's perfect. A perfect candidate. The data is remarkable. Yes, tell them we proceed at 0900. Delivery and acquisition will follow Protocol Bravo. The call ended. Jenna stood for a moment, looking out at the dark yard, then went back inside, sliding the door shut with a soft thump. I crouched behind the bin, trembling. The words replayed in my head. Final sequence tomorrow. 0900. Delivery and acquisition. Protocol Bravo. It was real. It was happening. And it wasn't just Reed. There was a them. Kronos. They were coming. They were going to take my son. Acquisition. I ran. Not a jog. A flat-out, heart in my throat, sprint back to my car. I fumbled with the keys, my hand shaking, so badly I could barely get the door open. I collapsed into the driver's seat, locking the doors, sucking in great, ragged gulps of air. I had to call the police. Now, I had a recording. I had evidence, but Mike's warning echoed in my head. Circumstantial, a recording of a woman saying cryptic things in her backyard? They'd dismiss it. They'd say it was a family dispute. By the time they took me seriously, IT would be 9:01 a.m. And Leo would be gone. Acquisition. I needed more. I needed to stop it myself. But how? I was one woman. Rachel. I needed my lawyer. I drove home the streets a smear of light and shadow. Once inside, the empty house felt like a tomb. I went to the guest room where I'd been sleeping and called Rachel. It was late but she answered on the first ring. Elena? What's wrong? In a frantic hushed torrent I told her everything. The financials, Chronos the scene in the house Jenna's phone call. The words final sequence and acquisition. Rachel was silent for a long moment. Okay, this is bad. This is kidnapping level bad. But we have a problem. If you go to the police with this right now, with what we have, they'll likely treat it as a domestic custody issue. They'll call your wife. It will tip our hand, and these people will vanish with Leo. We need irrefutable proof, or we need to catch them in the act. They're acting at 9 a.m. tomorrow. That's in less than 12 hours. I know, which means we have to move tonight, but we have to be smart. You can't go in alone. It's too dangerous. What do you suggest? Hiring a SWAT team. I'm suggesting we get a court order. An emergency ex parte order for temporary sole custody based on imminent danger and fraudulent medical treatment. I can file it first thing in the morning. A judge sees the read file, hears the recording he might grant it. Then we go in with a sheriff. Might? Rachel, they're taking him at 9. Your first thing in the morning could be too late. It's the legal way, Elena. The safe way. If you storm in there, you could get hurt. Leo could get hurt. You could be arrested for trespassing or worse. You'd lose any moral high ground. We argued in furious whispers for 10 minutes. She was the voice of cold reason. I was the voice of primal, maternal terror. The law was too slow. The danger was too immediate. I have to do something, I said finally, why voice breaking? I can't just sit here and wait for the law to catch up while they acquire my son. Rachel sighed, a long, weary sound. Then, at least don't go unarmed. I'm not buying a gun, Rachel. I'm not talking about a gun. I'm talking about leverage. Information. You said the wife. Jenna was on the phone. She's the soft spot. Reed is the true believer, the scientist. She's the partner. Maybe she's having second thoughts. Maybe she can be persuaded. If you're determined to go back, find a way to talk to her. Alone. Record everything. Get her to admit what's happening. That's evidence that will stand up. And it might give you a weapon. It was a thread. A thin, desperate thread. But it was all I had. After the call, I felt paralyzed, trapped between the horror of action and the agony of inaction. I paced the dark house. I ended up in the doorway of Leo's room, watching him sleep in the dim glow of his nightlight. His chest rose and fell peacefully. He clutched Mr. Trunks. The stuffed elephant was going with him tomorrow, to the final sequence, to be acquired. A white-hot fury cleaner and more focused than any I'd ever felt burned through the fear. No, not my son. I went to the kitchen. From the junk drawer, I took the small, sharp folding knife I used for opening boxes. It wasn't much, but the weight of it in my hand, and the pocket of my hoodie was an anchor, a promise. I didn't have a plan, not a good one, but I had a direction. I would be at 17 Maplewood at dawn. I would find Jenna Reed. I would get the truth, and then I would get my son back. As the first faint hints of gray lightened the sky outside, I got into my car. The house where my wife and son slept, or where my wife lay awake, complicit in God knew what, shrunk in the rearview mirror. I was driving towards the blue house, towards the trap that had been set for my family. The knife was a cold weight against my thigh. The recording app on my phone was open. I was outgunned, outmanned, and operating far outside the law. But I was a mother, and they had my cub. The trap was set, and at dawn I was going to spring it. Dawn on Maplewood Drive was a watercolor wash of pale pinks and grays, utterly at odds with the war drum beating in my chest. I parked a block over the engine's silence, feeling like a held breath. The neighborhood slept wrapped in a peace I could no longer feel. My fingers closed around the cool metal of the folding knife in my hoodie pocket a pathetic talisman. The phone in my other hand was live. The voice memo app a tiny glowing, ready to witness. Observe only, Mike had said. Get evidence, Rachel had advised. But the words from last night's phone call were a siren song of doom in my head. 0900. Acquisition. Protocol Bravo. The clock in my dashboard read 6:17 a.m. I had less than 3 hours. The blue Colonial looked serene in the early light. No movement. One car in the driveway, Jenna's sensible SUV. Maya's Volvo was gone. Had she stayed? Was Leo already inside? My breath hitched. Was I already too late? The plan, such as it was insanity. Confront Jenna Reed. Get her to talk. Record a confession. Use it as a crowbar to pry my son loose before the acquisition team arrived. It was a house of cards built on desperation, and I was a hurricane. I crossed the dewy lawn, why sneakers soundless. The front door felt like a monument. I raised my fist, knuckles poised to strike. T.O. shattered the calm. But the journalist, the hunter, stopped me. Don't announce yourself, I skirted the side of the house, remembering the sliding door to the deck from my recon. The latch on the wooden gate to the backyard gave with a soft click. I slipped through, closing it silently behind me. The backyard was a testament to normalcy. A gas grill, a bird feeder, a small herb garden. The sliding glass door to the living room was shut, the blinds mostly drawn, but not completely. I crept to the door, pressing myself against the siding. Peering through a narrow gap in the blinds, I saw the room. Empty. The puzzle from last night was still half-finished on the rug. The stillness was unnerving. Then a sound. A soft, rhythmic beeping. Faint, steady, coming from deeper in the house. From the basement. The sound was clinical, digital. A monitor. The confirmation was a cold fist around my heart. This was not just a home. It was a clinic. The rage, the terror, the sleepless night. It all coalesced into a single, white-hot imperative. Get to Leo. I tested the sliding door. Locked. Of course. I looked around. Beside the door, on a small patio table, was a ceramic pot of herbs. And under it, a weathered gray stone. A doorstop, or a decoration. My hand closed around it. It was heavy, solid. This is breaking and entering. This is a crime. They have my son. I didn't let myself think anymore. I wrapped the hood of my sweater around my hand, made a fist around the stone, and drove it into the corner of the glass door, right by the latch. The sound was a sickening, explosive crack, impossibly loud in the silent morning. A spider web of fractures raced across the pane. I hit it again, and the glass gave way, collapsing inward in a cascade of glittering shards. I reached through the jagged hole, why sweater armor snagging, and fumbled for the interior latch. My fingers found it, twisted. The door slid open with a groan. I was in. The beeping was louder now, and I heard voices, muffled, urgent, coming from a door I guessed led to the basement stairs. I didn't hesitate. I ran for IT.M, why feet crunching on the broken glass. I threw the door open. A narrow staircase led down into a bright, white light that clashed with the cozy upstairs. The beeping was a steady, insistent pulse. Leo. I screamed, my voice, RAWAS. I thundered down the stairs. The scene that greeted me at the bottom froze me in my tracks. Why mind refusing to process it? It was a basement, but it had been transformed. Half of it was a normal rec room, a worn sofa, a TV, a treadmill covered in laundry. The other half was a makeshift, startlingly clean medical bay. Not a dank lab, but a well-organized clinical space. A portable vital signs monitor beeped steadily. and 4 stand held a bag of clear fluid. A small padded medical cot was set up, and on that cot lying peacefully wires taped to his small chest, an oxygen sensor on his tiny finger, was Leo. He was dressed in his favorite dinosaur pajamas. He looked asleep, not distressed. Mr. Trunks was tucked under his arm. Standing around him were 3 people, all frozen in various stages of shock. Maya, wearing blue scrubs, her hand halfway to and 4-lined her face a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. Dr. Jonathan Reed, also in scrubs, holding a sealed syringe filled with a pale blue liquid. His expression was one of profound, weary sadness, not surprise. And Jenna Reed, in street clothes, her hand flying to her mouth, a strangled gasp escaping her lips. What the hell is this? The words tore from my throat, a guttural roar that echoed in the sterile space. I lunged forward, not towards them, but towards the cot, towards my son. Elena, to stop. Maya shrieked, throwing herself between me, and Leo, her arms spread wide. You can't. Get away from him. I screamed, trying to shove past her. What have you done to him? Dr. Reed stepped forward, placing his body more squarely in front of the cot, holding the syringe away from the scuffle. His voice, when he spoke, was calm, measured, utterly at odds with the chaos. Mrs. Vance, Elena, please, you have to let us finish. You'll hurt him. It'll hurt him? I was hysterical, tears of rage and fear blurring my vision. I fumbled in my pocket, not for the knife, but for my phone. I held it up, the red recording, light, a tiny, accusing eye. I'm recording this. All of it. You're experimenting on my child. I heard you. Final sequence. Acquisition. What is in that syringe? I pointed a trembling finger at the blue liquid. Jenna made a small, pained sound. Reed's calm facade cracked for just a second, his eyes flicking to the syringe with something like regret. Maya was sobbing, her hands pressed to her face. It's not an experiment, Reed said, his voice strained. It's a cure, the only one that exists. Leo has Lynchmere syndrome. The episodes, you saw the fever. That was the beginning. Without this, he gestured with the syringe, his nervous system will begin to degenerate. Rapidly. This vector carries a corrected gene sequence. It will stop the progression. It will save his life. Bullshit. I spat. You lost your license. You killed a patient. You're funded by Kronos, and they're coming to take him. At 9 o'clock. I heard the call. I turned my phone towards Jenna. Didn't I? Delivery and acquisition. Protocol Bravo. Jenna flinched, as if struck. All the color left Maya's face. Elena.no, it's not like that. Then what is it like? I was crying now, the fury giving way to a wrenching, helpless agony. Tell me, because from where I'm standing, why wife drugged our son and handed him over to a murderer and a corporation. He is not a murderer. Maya screamed, her own composure shattering. He's trying to fix his mistake. David Chen's death. It was a tragedy, a flaw in an earlier vector. This one is safe. It's been tested. Leo is proof. The nightly infusions they've stabilized him, prepared his system. This is the final curative dose. Without my consent. The injustice of it was a living thing inside me. You had no right. You're not a doctor, Reed. You're a criminal. And you. I turned my blazing eyes on Maya. You're so desperate to be the hero, not be like me, that you've made a deal with the devil. What did they promise you? Money? A cure? Or just the chance to watch them turn our son into a patent? It's not about patents. Reed interjected, his voice rising for the first time. This is about saving children. Kronos. They provided funding when no one else would. Yes, they want the intellectual property, but the treatment, the cure, that will exist. And what do they want with Leo? I shot back, taking a step closer, my phone still held high. Why the acquisition? You're not just giving them data, are you? You're giving them the subject. The silence that followed was thicker than the beeping of the monitor. It was a confession. Jenna looked at the floor. Reed's jaw tightened. Maya just stared at me, her eyes hollow with a dawning terror that wasn't for Leo's health, but for something else entirely. They want to observe him. Maya whispered, the fight gone out of her. Post-treatment, for a short time, to confirm efficacy. It's part of the agreement. Observe him where? I pressed why voice deadly quiet. In a Chronos lab? For how long? What does Protocol Bravo mean? Handoff to a nondescript van? A private airstrip? Before anyone could answer, a new sound cut through the tension. From upstairs, a heavy authoritative thump in the front door. Then another. Not a knock. A demand. Then the wail of sirens, distant at first, then swelling rapidly, converging on Maplewood Drive. Jenna's head snapped up, her eyes wide with panic. They're early. Oh God, they're early. Who's early? I demanded, but I already knew. Chronos Security, Reed said, his voice flat. The sadness was gone, replaced by a grim resignation. They monitor the house. The broken glass. It tripped a silent alarm. They're not here for observation, Mrs. Vance. They're here for containment and acquisition. The word hung in the air, final and terrible. Maya looked from Reed to me, the full, horrifying reality of her bargain crashing down on her. Jonathan, you said they just wanted to verify. I said what I needed to say to save your son. Reed replied, not unkindly, but with a brutal honesty. Chronos doesn't do verification. They do control. They own the process. They will own him, every cell, every piece of data, for as long as they deem necessary. Protocol Bravo means secure, immediate transfer to a controlled facility. No parents, no outside contact. Maya made a sound like a wounded animal. She stumbled back, collapsing against a medical cot, her hand finding Leo's sleeping foot. No, you promised. The pounding on the door upstairs turned into the splintering crack of wood. They were breaking in. The trap wasn't just set. It had been sprung, and we were all in it. Reed moved suddenly, with a speed that belied his age. He grabbed a large, heavy medical textbook from a shelf and hurled it across the room. It struck the main circuit breaker panel by the stairs with a crash and a shower of sparks. The lights in the basement died. The monitors beeping cut off mid-tone. The only illumination now was the gray, pre-dawn light filtering weakly through the high, small basement windows. The backup generator will power the medical equipment for 20 minutes. Reed said, his voice a ghost in the sudden gloom. He shoved the sealed syringe into Maya's hands. The dose. It's stable for 36 hours at room temp. Get it to Yale New Haven. Find Dr. Anya Sharma in pediatric genetics. Tell her Jonathan sent you. She'll know what to do. It's his only chance. He then turned to me, his eyes finding mine in the shadows. There's an old coal chute behind the water heater. It opens to the side yard. It's small, but you can get Leo through. Go. Now. Jonathan, N.O. Jenna cried, rushing to his side. They're not here for you. Jenna, he said, pulling her into a brief, fierce hug. Play confused. You heard a break-in, you called the police. You know nothing. He kissed her forehead. I'm so sorry. The crashing from upstairs was louder. Heavy footsteps. Voices, sharp and professional, called out. Clear the upper level. They were searching. The mother in me warred with the journalist, the righteous avenger. Every instinct screamed to stand my ground. T.O. fight. T.O. expose them all. But Reed's words echoed. They're here for containment and acquisition. They were here for my son. Maya was already moving, her maternal instincts overriding her shock. She gently, quickly, began disconnecting the sensors from Leo. Her hands, sure despite their trembling. She wrapped him .4 line and all, the thin blanket from the cot, cradling him close. He stirred, murmuring sleepily, but didn't wake. Sedated, the The realization was another knife to the heart. The shoot, Reed urged, pointing to a dark corner behind a hulking, groaning water heater. I didn't need to be told twice. I scrambled over, brushing past Jenna, who stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Behind the heater was a small, rusted metal door at about 2 feet square, set into the stone foundation. I wrestled with a stiff latch, why broken glass cut, hands screaming in protest. It gave with a shriek of metal. Cold, damp air flowed in. Beyond was a dark, cobweb tunnel angling upwards. Go, Reed hissed. I'll lead them the other way. There's a bulkhead door to the backyard. I'll make noise. Maya was beside me, clutching Leo to her chest. She looked at me, and in that moment, all the lies, the betrayal, the fury that was washed away by a single, shared, primal terror. We were just two mothers, and our child was in danger. You first, I said, why voice harsh. Hand him to me, from the other side. She didn't argue. She got on her knees and, with a grace born of desperation, slid into the narrow chute, holding Leo above her, disappearing into the darkness. I glanced back one last time. Dr. Jonathan Reed was pouring a bottle of isopropyl alcohol over a pile of papers on a desk, patient files, research notes. He struck a match. A small, defiant flame leapt to life, casting grotesque, dancing shadows on the walls. He looked at the flame, then at the stairs where the boots of Kronos security were now thunderously descending. He had chosen his redemption. It was a pyre. Jenna met my eyes, gave a tiny, desperate nod, then turned and screamed, a perfect performance of hysterical fear. Who's there? Help. We're down here. It was my cue. I dropped to my stomach and slithered into the cold, filthy darkness of the coal chute, the sound of Jenna's screams and the roar of approaching men swallowed by the earth behind me. I was crawling towards a sliver of gray light, towards my son, towards a war that was no longer just about secrets, but about survival. The coal chute was a claustrophobic nightmare of damp stone, crumbling mortar, and the thick, choking scent of decay. I crawled on my elbows to the rough surface, scraping my forearms, raw at the sound of my own frantic breathing loud in the cramped space. Ahead, a rectangle of weak morning light grew larger. I could hear Maya's ragged gasps, the soft, frightened whimper that was Leo beginning to stir. My hands found the edge. I pushed forward, tumbling out of the chute onto a bed of damp mulch and overgrown ivy in the tight, shaded space between the Reed house and the neighbor's fence. I scrambled to my feet, wiping grime from my eyes. Maya was already up. Leo clutched against her, his head lolling on her shoulder. He was awake, now, eyes glassy and confused. Mama. Dark. Shoo. Sweetheart, it's okay. Maya soothed, her voice trembling. She looked at me, her face pale and streaked with dirt and tears. The car. We have to get to the car. They'll be watching the cars, I said, why mind racing, the journalist's tactical brain kicking in. Yours, mine, the whole street. I peered around the corner of the house. The front was a scene of controlled chaos. 2 black, unmarked Suburbans with dark-tinted windows were angled in the driveway and street. Men in dark tactical gear, but without police markings, moved with efficient purpose. One was talking into a wrist mic. Another was examining the shattered sliding door. I saw no police cars. Kronos had come first, and they'd come hard. Back alley, I whispered, pulling Maya deeper into the shadows along the fence line. We go through the yards. Stay low. We moved like ghosts, ducking under clotheslines, skirting plastic playhouses, our progress a series of frantic dashes between cover. Leo, thankfully, had succumbed again to whatever sedation was in his system, his body a heavy, limp weight. The syringe, the pale blue cure, or poison, or ransom, was tucked into the waistband of Maya's scrubs. We emerged from between 2 garages into the back alley where I'd parked the day before. My car was a block away, but it was a beacon. They'll have plate readers. They'll find it, I gasped, leaning against a wooden fence. And why lungs burning? Then we don't take it, Maya said, her eyes wild. We need to get to the hospital. Jonathan said. Jonathan is a liar who set us up. I snapped, but the heat was gone. We were in it together now. We can't trust his plan. This Dr. Sharma. What if she's with them? She's not, Maya said, with a surprising vehemence. He told me about her. She's the one who tried to defend him at the board hearing. She believes in his work. She's our only chance. A chance. It was all we had. But we were on foot, with a sedated toddler, miles from the hospital, being hunted by a private paramilitary force with legal impunity. My phone. It was still in my hand, the recording app finally stopped. I had evidence. But evidence was useless if we were in a Kronos black site. I opened a rideshare app with fumbling fingers. We need a car. Not ours. Something random. I requested a ride, setting the pickup location 2 streets over the church where I'd parked before. Come on. We half ran, half stumbled through the labyrinth of alleys, sticking to the shadows. My mind replayed the basement scene. Reed setting the fire, Jenna's scream, the sacrifice and the performance. Was it enough? Would it slow them down? We reached the small church parking lot, pressing ourselves against the brick wall beside a dumpster. A beat-up Toyota Corolla pulled in 2 minutes later. The driver, a young man with headphones on, barely glanced at us as we piled into the back. A disheveled woman in bloody scrubs holding a sleeping child and another woman covered in dirt and cobwebs. We must have looked like refugees from a disaster. In a way, we were. Yale New Haven Hospital. Main entrance. And please to hurry, I said, my voice cracking. He nodded, shrugged, and pulled out. As we drove, I watched out the back window. No black Suburbans followed. Not yet, but they would be looking. They had resources we couldn't imagine. I turned to Maya. In the close, silent space of the car, with Leo's quiet breathing between us, the enormity of what had happened settled like a weight. Start talking, I said, my voice low and exhausted. The truth. All of it. Now. She stared at Leo's peaceful face, her fingers stroking his hair. After his 2nd birthday, the fever. It wasn't just a virus. He had a seizure in the ER. A bad one. They did a full workup. The head of pediatrics, an older guy, he pulled me aside. He said the markers in his blood, the EEG patterns, they were consistent with something he'd only read about. Lynchmere. He said it was a death sentence. A slow, horrible unraveling. There were no treatments, just management. He gave me a pamphlet for a support group. She took a shuddering breath. I went home. I looked at you, so relieved he was better, planning his birthday party. I couldn't say it. I just couldn't. I started researching. Desperately. I found a Lynchmere parent forum. It was a ghost town, just stories of loss. But in one old thread that a user named Guardian1 had posted, talked about corrective vectors and off-label pathways. I direct messaged. It was Jonathan. He video called me. He explained his theory, his work. He said he could help, but it had to be secret. The medical establishment had crucified him. Big Pharma would steal it. He needed a willing subject, a parent who could follow protocols. Exactly. And you just believed him? The question wasn't an accusation anymore, just a weary query. I had him vetted. As much as I could. I found the malpractice case. He was honest about it. He cried talking about David Chin. He said it was a flaw in a carrier protein that he'd spent 5 years fixing it. He showed me data, lab results, genomic sequencing. It looked real, and I was out of options. So I said yes. The nightly park visits were for the preliminary infusions. They were building his tolerance, preparing his cells. Today was the real thing, the permanent fix. Her hand went to the syringe at her waist. This is his life, Elena, in a vial. And Kronos? I asked the name, a foul taste. Her face contorted. He told me they were angel investors, bioventure capitalists who believed in his vision, that they funded the lab at the materials. He said they'd want to oversee the final administration for quality assurance. I thought that meant a supervisor watching, not commandos. A tear traced a clean line through the grime on her cheek. He played me. He used my fear. He made me his accomplice. The car pulled up under the sprawling canopy of the hospital's main entrance. The normalcy of it, the orderly flow of people to the ambulances, the sheer, bustling mundanity was surreal. I paid the driver in cash for my emergency stash. We got out, Maya holding Leo, me hovering close, scanning the crowd to the cars, every face. Were they here already? Pediatric genetics. 8th floor. Maya murmured, heading for the elevators with the certainty of someone who'd been here before. Of course she had. This was part of her secret life. Too. The elevator ride was an eternity. The doors opened on a quiet, carpeted corridor. The placard on the wall said, Division of Genetic Medicine. Maya walked straight to a door marked Dr. Anya Sharma, Director. She didn't knock. She pushed it open. The office was small, lined with books and framed degrees. Behind the desk, a woman in her 40s with sharp, intelligent eyes and a severe black bob looked up from a microscope. Her gaze took in Maya, torn, bloody scrubs, holding a sleeping child, and me, a wild-looking mess behind her. There was no surprise on her face, only a deep, profound sadness. Maya Rodriguez, doctor. Sharma said, her voice soft. She stood up. And you must be Elena. I wondered when you'd find your way here. You know who I am? I asked, stunned. Jonathan told me you might come. If things went wrong. She came around the desk, her eyes instantly going to Leo. Is that the AAV9 vector? She asked, pointing to the syringe. Maya nodded mutely, pulling it out and holding it like a sacred relic. He said to give it to you. He said you'd know what to do. Dr. Sharma took the syringe, holding it up to the light, examining the pale blue liquid. The perfected sequence, she whispered, almost to herself. Then she looked at us. The prep work, the nightly primers, done. For the last 10 days, Maya said, he's ready. Jonathan said, but Kronos came. They were going to take him. Dr. Sharma's lips thinned. Of course they were. Jonathan always hoped he could outsmart them, use their money, deliver the cure, and slip away. He was a brilliant geneticist, a terrible strategist. She placed the syringe carefully in a small medical cooler on her desk. The treatment is real, Elena. The syndrome is real. Jonathan's original sin was hubris, not incompetence. She tapped the cooler. This is his penance. It should work. The confirmation, from a respectable, board-certified doctor in a legitimate hospital, should have been a relief. It was a vertigo. My wife had been right about the disease, right about the cure, and catastrophically wrong about everything else. What do we do now? My voice was small. Kronos is looking for us. For him. Dr. Sharma's expression turned clinical, decisive. First, we treat the patient. Here. Now. In a proper, monitored setting. I'll admit him under a Jane Doe proxy. Restricted floor. No information given out. Then, we use what you have. What we have. Evidence. Jonathan said you recorded the confrontation. I assume you have other things. Names. Details. Kronos operates in shadows because the light burns them. We need to shine a very big, very public light. My phone felt heavy in my pocket. The recording. The files from Mike. The address. I have a private investigator. He has financials. Ties to Kronos. Good. Give me his number. I have contacts. Reporters. FDA investigators. People who have been waiting for a crack in Kronos' armor. She picked up her desk phone. Nurse Amy? I need a gurney and a portable isolette in my office. Stat. And page Dr. Chen from security. Tell him we have a code silver. Potential hostile corporate extraction. Yes, that I'm serious. As she barked orders, that a strange calm settled over me. We were in a fortress now, a medical fortress. We had an ally, we had the cure, and we had the makings of a weapon. 20 minutes later, Leo was in a secure pediatric ICU room, the pale blue liquid flowing into his fore under the watchful eyes of Dr. Sharma and a trusted nurse. Maya sat by his bed, holding his hand, her face a mask of exhausted devotion. I stood by the window, looking down at the city. Somewhere out there, men in black Suburbans were searching. A house on Maplewood Drive was smoldering. A disgraced doctor had made his last stand. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Vance, this is Jenna Reed. Jonathan is in custody. He told them nothing. They think it was a botched burglary that you and Maya took Leo during the chaos. They don't know you came here, but they will look. They are relentless. You have to go public. Now, before they bury you. I'm attaching everything I have, wire transfers, project outlines, Chronos protocols. Use it. Burn them all. A second later, my phone chimed with a massive file download. I looked at Maya. Leo. The steady drip of the cure into his veins. The twisted truth was laid bare. My wife's lie had sprung from a love so fierce it blinded her. The villain's crime was born of a guilt so deep it redeemed him. And our salvation depended on exposing it all, on turning our private nightmare into a public firestorm. I opened my contacts. I had a number for a producer at a local investigative news outlet, an old source from my journalism days. I hadn't spoken to her in years. I took a deep breath and pressed call. The war wasn't over. It was just entering a new, more dangerous phase. The phase where the hunted turned and fought back with the only weapon that could ever defeat an empire of shadows. The truth, broadcast live, in high definition. The sterile, hushed air of the pediatric ICU was a universe away from the chaos of Maplewood Drive. Here, time was measured in the soft, rhythmic beep of Leo's heart monitor and the slow, deliberate drip of the pale blue liquid. The vectored, the cure. Jonathan Reed's poison chalice and final gift into our son's arm. Maya hadn't left the plastic chair beside his bed, her posture a sculpture of vigilance and guilt. Her hand was a constant on Leo's small foot, as if anchoring him to this world, her. I stood by the window to the phone Jenna Reed had texted from burning a hole in my hand. The city sprawled below, indifferent. Somewhere in its veins, a corporate predator was hunting us. The file she'd sent was a digital grenade. Wire transfers from Chronos shell companies to VitaGen, project outlines for Project Guardian that chillingly listed objectives like long-term subject monitoring in controlled environment and IP consolidation, internal Chronos protocols for asset acquisition and quieting. It was a roadmap to a kidnapping authored in boardroom legalese. Dr. Sharma had been a whirlwind of efficient, controlled fury. Leo was admitted under a pseudonym, Lucas Green. His floor access was restricted, his room number unlisted. A discreet hospital security detail men who looked more like special forces than rent-a-cops had been posted. Dr. Chin is ex-FBI, Sharma had said tersely. He understands the threat. The hospital, for now, that was our Alamo. But Alamo's fall. Chronos had lawyers influenced and a brazen disregard for rules that govern normal people. We had a syringe, a disgraced doctor's data, and a story. My call to Lydia Cho, the investigative producer at Channel 8, had been frantic, cryptic. Lydia, it's Elena Vance. I have a story. Big Pharma. Illegal human experimentation. A child's life. They're coming for him. I need to go live. Today. There was a long pause. Elena? Jesus. Okay. Start from the beginning. Slowly. I gave her the cliff notes. The secret visits, the rogue geneticist, the corporate enforcers to the hospital siege. I texted her a few screenshots from Jenna's file. Enough to prove I wasn't insane. Her tone shifted from skeptical friend to hard-nosed journalist in a heartbeat. Stay where you are. Do not talk to anyone. I'm assembling a team. We'll come to you. We'll stream it live. Social media, website, broadcast cut in. They can't spin it if it's already exploding. That had been 2 hours ago. The sun was fully up now, casting long, sharp shadows. 9 a.m. had come and gone. The acquisition window had passed. The failure would have made them angry, dangerous. A soft knock at the door. Dr. Sharma entered, followed by a compact Asian man in a dark suit, Dr. Chin. His eyes swept the room, missing nothing. No tail, he said to Sharma, but they'll run plates. They'll have facial recognition on the main entrances. We have maybe 4.5 hours before they triangulate this floor. Will your security hold? I asked, my voice tight. Against a legal injunction served by a process server? No, Chin said bluntly. Against a direct, physical extraction by corporate contractors? Long enough for the real police to arrive. But the goal is to not let it get to that point. He looked at me. Lydia Cho's crew is in the building. We're setting them up in a family consult room down the hall. It's secure. You ready? I looked at Maya. She hadn't moved, her gaze fixed on Leo's sleeping face. The rift between us was a canyon filled with broken trust, but a common enemy stood on the far side, aiming at our child. Maya, I said softly, I need you. She finally looked up, her eyes red raw. For what? To tell the truth. With me. On camera. A tremor went through her. The thought of exposing her folly, her deception, the world was a fresh horror. I can't. They'll take him away from me. I broke the law. They'll take him forever if we don't do this. I snapped, the fear sharpening my words. This is the only play we have. It's confess or be disappeared. Your choice. She flinched. Then, with a tenderness that cracked my anger, she leaned over and kissed Leo's forehead. She stood, her movements stiff. For him, she said, not looking at me. Always for him. The consult room was a bland, soundproofed box with awful lighting. Lydia Cho was there, a force of nature in a crisp blazer, directing a 2-person crew with a handheld live stream rig and a smartphone on a tripod. Elena, my God, she said, giving me a brief, hard hug. Her eyes flicked to Maya, taking in her scrubs, her devastation. You must be Maya. Okay, we're streaming simultaneously to Facebook Live, YouTube, and our website. We'll cut into the noon broadcast. No edits. No delay. It's raw and it's risky. Once we go live, you're in the crosshairs. Last chance to back out. Maya and I looked at each other. In that shared glance was the entire history of our love and its ruin, and the single, unshakable fact of the boy in the room down the hall. We nodded. Lydia took a position facing the smartphone's camera. The red live light glowed. This is Lydia Cho, Channel 8 Investigative News, coming to you live from an undisclosed location. What you are about to hear is a story of medical desperation, corporate predation, and a fight to save a child's life. With me are Elena Vance and Maya Rodriguez. Their 3-year-old son, Leo, is currently receiving an experimental, life-saving treatment in this hospital. And a multi-billion-dollar biotech firm called Kronos Biomedical is attempting to take him from them. This is their story. She turned to me. Elena, start at the beginning. And I did. My voice shook at first, then steadied as the journalist in me took over. I spoke of the secret texts at the house on Maplewood. Dr. Jonathan Reed, his revoked license, the ghost of David Chin. I held up my phone, showing the screenshot of the Project Guardian file to the camera. I didn't embellish. The facts were terrifying enough. Then Lydia turned to Maya. Maya, you took Leo to Dr. Reed. You kept it a secret from your wife. Why? Maya's composure was brittle, but her voice was cleared, fueled by a desperate honesty. Because I was told my son was dying. Because I was so afraid of losing him that I believed a man who told me he could perform a miracle. I was wrong to lie. I was wrong to not trust my wife. But I was not wrong that Leo is sick. Lynch-Meyer syndrome is real. The treatment he is receiving right now is his only hope. Tears spilled over, but she didn't wipe them away. They were part of the testimony, and the people who funded that treatment, Kronos, they don't see a little boy. They see proprietary genetic data. They see an asset. They were coming to take him this morning. We escaped, and now we are here, begging for someone to help us protect our child. Lydia expertly guided the narrative, weaving in the documents Jenna had provided, displaying wire transfers, the chilling protocol Bravo. She named names. She connected dots. The live viewer count on the phone screen was climbing. 5, 000.10, 000.50, 000. Comments scrolled in a frantic blur. OMG. This is insane. Call the FBI. Is this for real? My cousin works at Kronos. She said the place is shady as hell. We were 20 minutes in when Dr. Chin, monitoring a tablet, held up a hand. His face was grim. They're here. Lobby. 3 men. Corporate IDs. Demanding to see Lucas Green. Hospital admin is stalling, but they have a court order. Filed an hour ago. Emergency custody petition, citing medical endangerment by the parents. The air left the room. They'd moved faster than we'd hoped. The law was their weapon, too. Lydia's eyes flashed. She turned back to the camera, her voice rising with theatrical urgency. You're hearing that, folks. As we speak, Kronos representatives are in this hospital, armed with a court order, attempting to seize this child. This is happening now. She looked at me. Elena, what are you going to do? The question wasn't for me. It was for the 100,000 people now watching. It was a challenge to the world. I stood up. I'm going to my son's room. And I'm not leaving. And I'm asking everyone watching, if you have any power, any voice, any ability to shine a light into this darkness, do it now. Call this hospital. Call the governor. Call the FBI. Don't let them take him. We're coming with you. Lydia said, and her cameraman shouldered the rig. The live feed now a shaky cinema verite chase scene as we bolted from the room. The hallway was a tense tableau. 2 of Dr. Chen's security men stood outside Leo's door, arms crossed. From around the corner, we could hear raised voices. Immediate transfer for his own safety. We have physicians standing by. Your court order is being verified. You will wait. A hospital administrator's voice replied, strained. We pushed into Leo's room. Maya rushed back to his bedside. I positioned myself between the bed and the door. Lydia and her cameraman framed the shot. Mida standing guard. Maya, the protective mother. Leo, innocent and vulnerable in his hospital bed, the 4-line taped to his arm. The live feed was a powder keg. The viewer count skyrocketed. 250,000, 500,000. Then the door opened. The 3 men who entered were the epitome of corporate menace in tailored suits. The lead, a man with silver hair and cold lawyer's eyes, carried a leather portfolio. He didn't flinch at the camera in his face. He was used to being in control. Elena Vance? Maya Rodriguez? I'm Gerald Holcomb, Chief Counsel for Kronos Biomedical. This is a court order signed by Judge Harold Weissman, granting Kronos Biomedical temporary emergency medical custody of Leo Rodriguez Vance due to gross parental medical neglect and exposure to dangerous, unauthorized procedures. He held out the paper. Lydia thrust the smartphone forward, capturing the document. Mr. Holcomb, Lydia Cho, Channel 8 News. Are you aware that you are currently on a live broadcast being watched by over 500,000 people? Can you explain why your company is attempting to take a child from his mother's? Holcomb's composure cracked for a microsecond. He hadn't anticipated a live audience. He recovered, aiming a thin, professional smile at the camera. We are acting in the best interests of the child, who has been subjected to highly risky, unapproved gene therapy, by a doctor with a history of fatal malpractice. We have the facilities and expertise to provide proper care and mitigate the damage. The damage from the cure that's saving his life? I shot back, stepping forward, why fear morphing into a fierce protective rage? You didn't care about damage when you were funding Reed. You cared about the patent. You were going to take my son to a lab. Protocol Bravo. For long-term monitoring. Isn't that right? I saw it in his eyes, the shock of recognition. He hadn't known we had the protocols. The live feed was capturing his stumble. Those are proprietary research documents stolen and taken out of context, he blustered. But the slick facade was crumbling. Then explain the wire transfers. Maya cried out, her voice stronger now, fueled by a mother's fury. Explain why you sent armed men to Dr. Reed's house at 9 a.m. to take my son. Is that standard pediatric care? The comments on the live feed were a tsunami of outrage. Viewers were flooding the hospital switchboard, the governor's office, the local FBI field office. Dr. Chen, watching his tablet, gave a tight, grim smile. State police are on their way. FBI just opened a file. The judge's clerk is calling. The order is being re-evaluated given new evidence presented in the public domain. We had them. The light was burning them. But cornered animals are dangerous. Holcomb's eyes icy with fury locked on the forebag. On the cure, his company's multi-billion-dollar intellectual property, dripping away into a child they were about to lose. That treatment is the property of Kronos Biomedical, he said, his voice dropping all pretense. Every drop. You have no right to it, nurse. He barked at a horrified nurse who had peeked in. As per this court order, you are to cease this unauthorized treatment immediately and prepare the patient for transfer. You touch that line, and I will end you, I said the words low and deadly. I meant it. I would have launched myself at him. Camera be damned. A new voice, calm and authoritative, cut through. The treatment will continue. Dr. Sharma stood in the doorway, and beside her was an older man in an impeccable suit, flanked by two serious-looking individuals with federal badges on their belts. Gerald, the older man, said, his voice like gravel. I think you're done here. Director Miller? Holcomb paled. The man was from the FDA's Office of Criminal Investigations. We've been monitoring the broadcast. Director Miller said, his gaze sweeping the room, lingering on the four, on Leo. We've also received a comprehensive data dump from a Jane Reed. Fascinating reading. Enough to get warrants for your servers, or emails, and a grand jury subpoena for your board. Your asset acquisition team is currently being detained by the state police for questioning regarding a possible kidnapping conspiracy. I suggest you and your colleagues come with my agents. We have a great deal to discuss. It was over, just like that. The federal government spurred into action by a viral live stream, and a mountain of evidence had arrived. Holcomb's shoulders slumped. The fight drained out of him. He was led away without another word, the camera capturing every humiliating step. The room erupted into chaos, and then just as suddenly, the profound, trembling silence. The camera's red light went off. Lydia was talking rapidly into her phone. Dr. Sharma was checking Leo's vitals, a small, satisfied smile on her face. The federal agents were securing the room. Maya sank into her chair, her whole body shaking with silent sobs. I walked to the window, my own legs unsteady. The city was still there. The sun was still shining. But the world had fundamentally, irrevocably changed. The aftermath was a slow, painful unraveling of the nightmare, strand by legal and emotional strand. Kronos Biomedical collapsed under the weight of investigations. FDA, FBI, SSC. Their stock became worthless. Senior executives were indicted. The public story of Project Guardian became a textbook case of corporate ethics gone mad. Dr. Jonathan Reed, charged with practicing medicine without a license and conspiracy, cut a deal. His testimony helped bury Kronos. In exchange, and in light of his actions to save Leo and expose the plot, he received a reduced sentence. Jenna Reed visited him every week. She sent us a card once with a single word: thanks. Leo's treatment was a success. The Lynchmere markers in his blood receded and vanished. He was by all medical accounts cured. Dr. Sharma became his permanent geneticist monitoring him under fully ethical, fully approved protocols. The medical establishment, once a source of despair for Maya, became his shield. But the cure for our family was not so simple. The fissure that had opened between Maya and me was a Grand Canyon. We had fought a war together, side by side, but the betrayal that had started it lay between us like a corpse. We went to therapy, relentlessly, painfully. We sat in quiet rooms and hurled the shattered pieces of our trust at each other. You chose a stranger over me. You would have let him die. You made me a villain in my own story. I was drowning and you didn't see me. The sessions were brutal. There were times I walked out, sure it was over. Times she packed a bag. The love was still there, but it was a wounded animal snarling and bleeding. What saved us, ironically, that was the very thing that had broken us, Leo. Not as a symbol, but as a little boy. A little boy who needed both his moms to help him build a block tower. Who needed both of us to read Goodnight Moon. Who, when he had a nightmare, would only calm down if he was nestled in a bed with one of us on either side a fortress of parental presence. We learned to parent together in the rubble. We learned to talk about schedules, and preschool, and pediatrician appointments before we dared to talk about feelings. We built a new routine, point one, with no secrets. A painful, conscious transparency. 1 month to the day after the showdown at the hospital, on a Saturday afternoon of astonishing blue sky, we took Leo to Oak Meadows Park. The real park. The one with the cracked plastic slide and the squeaky swings. Leo ran ahead on the path, chasing a squirrel, his laughter ringing out, pure and unburdened. He was just a boy, a healthy, vibrant, exhausting 3-year-old boy. The miracle of it still stole my breath. Maya and I walked a few paces behind, a careful distance between us. The silence wasn't hostile anymore. It was fragile, full of things unsaid, but not poisonous. We watched him clamber onto the playground, immediately making a friend with a little girl in a polka dot dress. He seems good, Maya said softly, her eyes never leaving him. He is good, I said. She took a deep breath. The final report from Dr. Sharma came. Full genomic analysis. No trace of the defective sequence. He's clear. For life. I nodded at the news, landing in a quiet part of my soul that had been braced for disaster for so long. That's wonderful, Maya. She finally turned to look at me. The sunlight caught the tears in her eyes, but she wasn't sobbing. She was just open, raw. I am so sorry, Elena. Not just for lying, for not seeing you, for being so terrified that I turned you into the enemy. You are the bravest, most relentless person I have ever known. You saved him. You saved us. I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you again. I know I may not get the chance, but I'm so sorry. The words weren't a magic spell. The hurt didn't vanish, but it shifted. It became something we could maybe eventually carry together instead of letting it crush us separately. I looked at her, the woman I had loved enough to make a life, a child at home with. I saw the profound weariness, the guilt, the love that had once been a laser focus on Leo and was now, tentatively, widening to include me again. I'm sorry too, I said, the words surprising me as I said them. I'm sorry I made you feel that after my mom, that your fear wasn't valid. I'm sorry I was someone you couldn't come to. I was so busy being the strong one that I forgot to be your partner. We didn't hug. The canyon was still too wide for that, but a plank had been laid across it. Leo came running back, his face flushed with joy. Mama, push me on the swing. Hi, to the clouds. Maya smiled, a real one, the first I'd seen in what felt like a lifetime. To the clouds, she said. We walked to the swings together. I lifted him into the seat. Maya stood behind him, her hands on the chains. I stood facing him, ready to push. Ready? I asked. Ready. Leo squealed. Maya pulled him back. I placed my hands on his little back. For a second, our hands almost touched. We didn't look at each other. We looked at our son, his face tilted up to the sun, awaiting flight. 1, 2, 3. We pushed. Together. He soared forward, a tiny joyful speck against the vast blue laughing into the wind. He flew high, but not as high as the dreams we once had, or the fears that had shattered them. He flew at exactly the right height for a little boy on a perfect Saturday. Maya's hand found mine, not on Leo's back, but hanging at my side. Her fingers laced through mine, tentative, asking. They were cold. Mine were too. I didn't let go. We stood there, side by side, watching our son swing back and forth, back and forth. The rhythm was not yet easy. The trust was not yet whole. The love was a battered, repaired thing, stronger in the broken places, but forever scarred. But it was there, and he was safe. And for now, I end the dappled sunlight of a park with no secrets. That was enough. It was a start, not an ending, but a fragile, beautiful, hard-won beginning. We were broken, but we were here, and we were rebuilding.